Nature can be a very dangerous thing. For all the technology we have, we're still mostly powerless in the face of nature. There's very little we can do about earthquakes, tornadoes, and tsunamis. Even when we try to exercise our control over water by building dams, the results can be hazardous, as you're about to see in this video. The Kariba Dam sits in a river basin where Zimbabwe meets Zambia. It's a mighty concrete construction standing 420 feet tall and running to almost 2,000 feet in length. The creation of the dam was responsible for the formation of Lake Kariba, which covers a 170-mile area. Although construction work on the dam began in 1955, it wasn't completely finished until 1977. By that time, almost $500 million had been spent, and 86 construction workers had lost their lives putting it together. 57,000 Tonga people had to be relocated so they were out of the way of the redirected water. By 2014, the bedrock had been eroded by torrents of water and a huge crater had been created. Without urgent repair work, it could fail completely, putting 3.5 million lives at risk. At present, the dam is only holding 12% of its water capacity while repair work is being carried out, which makes the hydroelectric power station, which depends on it, almost inoperable. You can find the Contra Dam, which is sometimes called the Locarno Dam, in Ticino, Switzerland. Built in 1965, the dam created Lago di Vagorno. The MW Versaxa hydroelectric power station depends on the dam to generate electricity. Unfortunately, geologists hadn't realized how much strain that filling the new reservoir would put on the ground beneath it. As the reservoir filled, a chain reaction of earthquakes began, which didn't completely end until 1971. Contra Dam is an impressive sight. It's 720 feet tall with a 1,250-foot crest. But it's also surprisingly narrow, only 82 feet wide at the base. Despite the obvious danger that a dam of this size presents, it's been used as a location for movie filming crews. James Bond jumped off the top of it in the opening scenes of 1995's GoldenEye. Ever since then, it's been popular with bungee jumpers. A dam that could potentially fail is a scary thing. A dam that's already failed is even worse. It took less than 10 years of operation for the Machu Dam in India to burst, and the results were catastrophic. Machu was completed in 1972 and situated on the River Machu close to Rajkot. It wasn't even an unusually large dam, 20 feet wide at the top and 70 feet tall. The Indians built it with a clay core and earthen embankments, which ultimately weren't strong enough to deal with the torrents of water. In August 1979, the dam burst. A wall of water cascaded into the town of Morbi. Tragically, the incident led to many fatalities. Official estimates of the number of people who lost their lives stand between 1,800 and 25,000. Flooding caused by sudden heavy rain simply put too much strain on the dam, and it couldn't deal with the pressure. Since the disaster, the dam has been rebuilt, but it now has a spillway with a capacity 4 times greater than the previous failed dam. Since then, there have thankfully been no further incidents. The failure of the Machu Dam raised questions about the safety and long-term viability of the Malapperiyar Dam, which is also in India. Malapperiyar is an old dam. It was completed in 1895, and it's showing signs of wear and tear. To add to the concerns, it's also enormous, 176 feet high and 1,200 feet long. Twice in the past 5 years, rainfall has seen the water level hit its maximum capacity of 142 feet. Anything higher could lead to failure. A study of the Malapperiyar Dam was carried out after the Machu disaster and concluded that an earthquake with a magnitude of 6 on the Richter scale or higher would destroy it. The stone rubble masonry used in the dam's construction is now considered an obsolete and unsafe method, and there's evidence of pronounced leaking and seepage. In 1979, the water level of the dam was temporarily reduced to 136 feet, while repair work was carried out to strengthen it. But it's now thought that the repair work might have damaged the masonry. Dam failures aren't just a fear from the past. They're a clear and present threat. Earlier this year, the Lake Dunlap Dam in Texas, USA failed. It was May 21, 2019 when the spill gate failed, causing a near-instant drop of 12 feet in the water level as tides plowed its way downstream. The dam was approaching 100 years old and had simply eroded too badly to remain fit for purpose. Fortunately, there was no loss to human life, but boats which were floating on the lake were destroyed when the lake effectively disappeared. There was also a high mortality rate among wildlife. Fish and turtles, which relied on the lake for survival, were killed almost instantly. Repairing the dam is likely to take many years and will cost somewhere in the region of $30 million. Texas authorities are now concerned about the status of several other dams in the nearby area, most of which are around the same age as the Lake Dunlap Dam and were constructed the same way. Despite being recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as one of the strongest dams in the world, the Sayano-Sushinskaya Dam in Kakasha, Russia, has been beset by severe problems for several years. The dam is really a huge power plant, the largest in the whole country, and was built in 1960. It's 794 feet high and 347 feet wide across the base. The water pressure for the dam is an incredible 30 million tons. The first minor issue at the Sayano-Sushinskaya Dam occurred in 1979 when flood water entered a turbine. Nobody was harmed. 6 years later, a spring flood destroyed almost all of the bottom plate of the spillway, ripping out the anchor bolts and carving a 21-foot scar in the bedrock. The spillway well was destroyed by another flood 3 years later. In August 2009, the engine and turbine rooms of the power station flooded, causing 2 generators to explode underwater. 75 people were confirmed to be dead, and the resulting loss of power caused a huge blackout across the area. The accident also created an oil spill, releasing over 40 tons of transformer oil downstream. It took 5 years to make the dam completely operational again. The Córrego de Feijão Dam in Brazil was supposed to be safe. It was built in 1976 and was deemed by government officials to be a small structure with a low-risk rating. It turned out to be anything but. In January 2019, the dam almost completely collapsed, releasing a flow of water and mud that blasted through the offices of the mine that had been built around the dam. One of the rooms that was destroyed by the mud flow was a cafeteria, which had been packed full of people because it was lunchtime. The wall of mud continued downstream, crashing through inns, farms, and houses. Nobody had any time to react or get out of the way. It's now known that at least 248 people lost their lives in the incident, which has been called the Brumadinho Dam disaster. Local transport links were washed away with the destruction of 2 rail bridges and 300 feet of train tracks, also attributed to the mudslide. Vale, the company which owned and operated the mine, were held criminally liable after the collapse. No concrete or metal was used to construct the dam. The walls were made of silt and sand, and Vale had pushed the capacity to the limit. Carrying the name of a well-respected former president in the United States of America won't keep a dam safe from harm. The Harry S. Truman Dam sites on Truman Lake in Missouri, USA. According to a specialist engineering report commissioned in 2018, it's currently considered to be unsafe. The Army Corps of Engineers who studied the lake have categorized it as a Class 2 risk. According to their guidance, that means the risk is very high and required urgent action to avoid disaster. They have good reason to be worried. There's a large population of people living downstream from the dam, and the dam has demonstrated that its capacity for dealing with high levels of rainwater isn't great. People living as far as 60 miles away from the dam would still be considered to be at risk in the event of failure. Typically speaking, the dam can handle 660 feet of water. If that number got much beyond 700, the danger level would be extremely high. The dam is just over 40 years old, and remedial works have been recommended to avert the potential for anything to go wrong. The creation of the Banqiao Dam in China was an example of the Chinese and the Soviets working together to create something magnificent. Construction work began in 1951 with the Ru River decided upon as the best place to make this new home of power generation and flood control. Just 1 year later, the work was complete. The new dam was 80 feet high, with a crest that was over 300 feet above sea level. Given its size and the speed of work, it may have been rushed. Cracks appeared in the clay construction within a year after it was finished. When it flooded in 1975, it was the worst dam disaster in human history. A typhoon dropped a year's worth of rain into the dam in a single day, and it couldn't cope. Over 75 billion cubic feet of water was released by the dam in less than 6 hours. A wave 23 feet high and 6 miles wide hit near Suping, Jingping, Runan, Pingyu, and Linquan. The poor weather meant that evacuation orders hadn't been received. 6 million buildings collapsed, and approximately 250,000 people died, although some believe the figure was far higher. It should be obvious that an earthen dam isn't going to be as strong as a dam made out of concrete or steel. And so it's to be wondered why old-fashioned earthen dams aren't replaced as a matter of priority. The Teton Dam in Idaho, USA was an earthen dam, and it's not there anymore. It never really worked at all. It collapsed as it was being filled in June 1976. This was a mighty dam, 305 feet tall, 3,100 feet long, and 1,700 feet wide at the base. Open fissures were encountered during the construction phase, but the builders incorrectly believed they could solve the issues with grouting. A second issue was identified during the early filling stages when it was noted that groundwater was flowing 1,000 times more rapidly than had been anticipated. They continued to fill the dam regardless. Inevitably, the dam breached at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday, June 5th. 13,000 cattle in the surrounding area were drowned, and 11 people lost their lives too, some to drowning, some in the rush to get away. There are 3 things which are generally responsible for danger and disasters occurring at dams: poor design, poor maintenance, or freak weather conditions. When the Val di Stava Dam collapsed in Italy in July 1985, it was all due to maintenance. There had been nothing wrong with the way the dam was built, and weather conditions on the day of the collapse were normal. But basic maintenance tasks hadn't been performed for years. As a result, a pipe used to drain water from the upper dam was being crushed by the weight of sediment above it. Drainage, therefore, didn't occur properly, and water continued to be pumped in. The consequence of the increasing water pressure is that the water soaked into the bank and ultimately liquefied the soil, resulting in the upper dam collapsing into the lower dam and then the lower dam collapsing in a domino effect. A wall of water then tore into the village of Stava at 60 miles per hour, tearing 63 buildings down and ending the lives of 268 people. 10 people involved in running the dam were tried and convicted for gross negligence and manslaughter. Sometimes a dam is dangerous purely because of where it's at. That's the case for the Mosul Dam in Iraq. The dam, which opened in 1986, is 371 feet tall and 2 miles long, but only 33 feet wide at the crest. It was supposed to provide water and power for the area around it, but it's found itself at the heart of several battles. At one point during the 2003 Iraq War, it was feared that soldiers had wired the dam to detonate and collapse if Allied forces captured Mosul, although those fears proved to be unfounded. In 2014, the dam was in the hands of ISIS. Although Allied forces regained it from them after the infamous battle for Mosul Dam, it was feared that the fighting had weakened the dam, which was already known to be weakening because of poor construction. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers tested it and described it to be the most dangerous dam in the world, at risk of collapse at any second. If it did collapse, both Mosul and Baghdad would be underwater, and millions of lives would be lost. Urgent repair work has been ongoing since 2016. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.